Hey YouTube, welcome back to Universe X, and today we are actually going to get into a more rating oriented video for Realm of the Gods. We've got full spoilers now for the entire set, and I think it's about time. People have been doing their testing with it. I've been dabbling in, dabbling out. I've done a fair amount of videos in the set already, but hey, when did I not do videos on coverage, really? So in this video, I'm gonna kind of talk about where I feel like initially these decks are going to kind of land, these decks, these archetypes, and there's going to be kind of a little bit of like just points we go over, like meta relevance, strengths, you know, whether the archetype stands alone or whether it'll just kind of be absorbed, things like that. There's a lot of stuff here. And so yeah, we got a couple things to break down through. I will say we are so close to hitting 1,500. We are still on the road to 2,000 as well. So every little bit of support counts. So I just wanted to say thank you for everybody that's already a part of the UniX fam. And you know, a future thank you for anybody thinking about joining. And if you are thinking about joining, there are many ways to contribute. You can just like, comment, subscribe on the video. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section. You can just show love to the Universe X Facebook group. The link will be in the description. Join the Discord, talk. Discord, we have a whole lot of stuff that's just not, you know, like actually just Dragon Ball. I mean, we have groups for trading, we have selling, we have like the normal talks, the deck lists. You can volunteer for our fight nights on this channel. There's like just groups for everything. League of Legends, Master Duel, Dragon Ball, Dokkan Battle, Legends, like there's really something for everybody there. And if there's not, you join and you let me know and I'll make a new channel, you know, like that's what the Discord's for. So just kind of doing some self-promoting. And speaking of that, do have UniX DB, that's where my Dragon Ball gaming will go. Just about to really start diving into there. I've been making a lot of plans in the background, testing some things, making some templates and whatnot, organizing a bunch of stuff. And about 7 days from now, more like 6, we will have the 7th anniversary of Dragon Ball Dokkan Battle, Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, and I will be pulling on those. I'll be doing events, so if you like the game or you want to see somebody get shafted or hopefully get really lucky, go over there. Link's also in the description. Yeah. So, with all that aside, I normally do have the plugs, but this was an extra long plug session, so I will end up just kind of being brief with it. You got the normal official Facebook group for the card game. You've got the discussion group. The links will both be in the description. And you've got my homie Chris from TCGMetalZ. He just had a recent online tournament, had some great prizes yesterday. If you were there, you know. If you're not, keep an eye out because they're going to be monthly. And you'll find the link to his website as well as the fact that you can use the code UNIXD 10% off your entire order. So without further ado, let's dive into the content that you came here for. All right, so here we are, and now we get to talk about the archetypes. All the things here, you know, it's just, we get to talk about what makes the set. And of course, we're gonna start off with red. We're gonna start off with the Son Goku archetype. So in terms of where I think this is gonna fall in the meta, it's, like I said before, this is a quintessential red deck. Its purpose is to punch you in the face multiple times, very hard, very fast, until it hurts. And so, yeah, it does that. I think it's actually, it's like I said, it's a through and through red deck. In terms of power, it's got a lot of very low costed threats. This deck is very early in the game going to be hitting you for double strikes, dual attacks, multiples of them, and while it can't use overwhelm, it still has a lot of ways of putting pressure on. It even has like a small little counter that can also help you, you know, just add a body to the field and continue to cantrip when it comes into play. Its top end seems to really be the secret rare, when the secret rare is very accessible, mind you. It's got sparking super combos that you can use. This leader in archetype is actually going to be strong. I think it's going to be the official kind of Kacha-Lakin deck, because if you don't have a lot of defense in your deck, this deck will run over you. However, it is kind of weird, and granted, I say weird because that's the way this card game is set up, but I think it's actually very healthy in the sense that while this is very aggressive, turn 4 and beyond, this deck doesn't do anything different. You have a 4-drop that has deflect, I believe, but it also has no protection once it comes down. So without barrier, you know, you might be able to use it one turn and it could get hurt. Against, you know, things like blue or blue-yellow, it can probably bounce the very turn it's played. So there's a lot of kind of balancing with it. But that being said, the reason why I'm not sitting here like screaming about this deck is because it is fairly balanced. In terms of deck creation, because you are milling and you have to be playing off of certain cards in your grave, the more non-U7 cards you play, the more susceptible you can be in the early turns to not having the exact thing you need in grave. Now, the other thing about it though is because it has that fall off and things do cost energy, there aren't like a bunch of just like, oh, you just cheat these in for free cards. This deck still has to work off of how much energy you have, which means it's not going to be a broken aggressive deck, which means that a fairly good defensive hand could wall you. And if you get walled on turn 3, then you aren't killing them on turn 4. If you're not killing them on turn 4, you're going to let them get to turn 5 and so on and so on. And it may be a little hard for this deck to close out games the way it needs to. The secret rare is very, very nice, but because of cards like Final Flash, you're going to want to play him and then burn for 1, not risk swinging with them unless they're completely tapped out. So there are some things here. But I definitely think that this deck is going to be strong. I definitely think that it's going to be a lot of fun for players that like being aggressive and turning their board sideways, as red should do. Now, in terms of where this card is going to, or what these cards are going to do for the format, they've kind of made it fairly interesting in the sense that some of these can be extrapolated into Gohan because Gohan cycles a lot with combo. Not a lot of these cards can be shoved into Vegeta because Vegeta tends to keep more of its hand and not just aggressively combo. And then on top of that, like, it's also a little odd that that as a deck, it's a lot of these are made to specifically work for Goku despite being Red Universe 7. So it doesn't matter how many leaders we have that are Red Universe 7, these are tuned for Goku. In terms of flavor, it's pretty cool. It's Ultra Instinct, and when he used it in this form, he had a very specific time limit, and that's why you burst. You are bursting because you are running out of energy, which is your deck, and you have a bunch of, you have explosive power, but you have the ability to run out of that explosive power and then just pretty much be dead. So pretty cool, pretty cool. We're gonna move on to Grand Priest. Grand Priest, very, very interesting. 5-color deck. Well, 5-color deck. I guess it's actually 4. Yeah, it's 4-color deck. It allows you to run a bunch of multicolor cards, God-centric. However, at this very moment, it seems like it may be a little too clunky to be played correctly. It has a very hard time closing out games. It has some very strong control aspects, but these control aspects don't get bigger as the game goes on for the most part. You have like a turn 1 where you're not doing anything. You have a turn 2 where you're doing a fair amount of things. Turn 3 and 4, you're doing a whole lot of things. Turn 5, you're still doing those things, but you're not exactly advancing the game clock. Your opponent, if they take their own life, you can get close to burning them out, but you still have to survive around that. If your opponent awakens at high life, you're gonna have a very, very hard time trying to make this deck come to a head. So that's kind of rough. In terms of meta viability, that's pretty much it. Like, it's, I don't think right now it fits well enough. I think a lot of decks can aggress it if you're punching in the early game. I think a lot of decks will start to overcome it once they start getting into their full swings if they're a mid-game, late-game deck. It's a little weird. Like I said, every one of these choices could take more testing, but this is currently kind of how I'm feeling about this. So then, when it comes to the splash ability, yeah, it works completely. These cards will find homes in so many decks that are not Grand Priest. That's just factual, so we can just leave that alone already. In terms of flavor, it's also flavorful. This game, if anything, is just super flavorful. Grand Priest doesn't get his hands dirty. That's why he never attacks. That's why he taps. That's why his Unison taps, because he doesn't get his hands dirty. He lets everybody else do his deeds for him, and he commands the angels, which is what this deck's about. He commands the gods, so that's pretty cool. The next one I'm going to get into is blue, and the first leader up is actually going to be the Goku. Now this is going to be really rough because in terms of meta viability, there's zero. Like, I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it for you. There's zero. His effect is a weaker Soul Striker on the back end. He has really good self-awakening, but then I mean, he has an alternative awakening. 2 life is very low, but he can just put the 5 sands underneath him and then draw 3 cards, switch one of his energy active mode, which is a very strong awakening too. However, the issue here is that on his backside, he is literally against Soul Striker. Yes, for one time in the game, he will draw 2, untap 2. Cool. He will one time in the game be a slightly better Soul Striker. But Soul Striker every single turn of the game is better than this dude. It can awaken at high life totals. It's just unfortunate, but this card doesn't have 0 meta viability as long as Soul Striker is in the format. Now, when it comes to, and granted, the other one can awaken at high life totals too. Like, yes, he can put 5 in him, and then just, if you happen to be at 8 life, you're at 8 life. But his effects are going to fall off drastically. He is drawing 1, untapping 1, which is slightly worse than Soul Striker. Like I said, one time he will be slightly better than Soul Striker. Actually, the untap one is very worse than Soul Striker, than it is slightly. Now, when it comes to the Archetype, again, blue is one of the colors, and so far the only colors capable of this really are blue and yellow. But blue is one of those colors where archetypes really aren't ever the move. If the archetype core is small enough for you to extrapolate it and put it into another better blue leader, then yeah, go ahead, giggity giggity. But most of the times, what you're going to be looking at is a blue archetype, and then you ask yourself, this takes up 30 cards in my deck. Well, I can't play this, I can't play that, I can't play this. Why not just play Soul Striker or Zamasu and be able to play all these cards that I want to without a clunky engine? Better yet, let me look into this this package, take out the best cards that are generic, and then put them in my Soul Striker or Zamasu deck. And that's another thing that you're gonna find is happening here. The counter blocker SSG SR can be played in Soul Striker better, well, in a better deck than probably you're going to be able to make with this, on most certainly a better leader. So that is unfortunate, but that's kind of just like the way it is. In terms of flavor, he literally puts 5 sands underneath him to flip over, turning from a Super Saiyan to a Super Saiyan God. If that's not the script of the movie, I don't know what is. Now we're gonna go to Whis, and Whis almost has the same problem. Whis is very interesting, and I actually really like the way the cards are set up. However, none of these Beeruses are actually tuned to a Whis leader, meaning that you can pick and choose which ones are going to be better for your blue or blue-yellow Soul Striker deck and shove those bad boys right in. You can swing on battle cards and untap Beerus and energy, or you can just charge Beeruses like you could anyway, and you know, play the Beerus SR, the blue-yellow Beerus, the Beerus that untaps energy, because if I'm not mistaken, that is not a, let me just make sure before I open my mouth, that is not a Whis-specific card, right? Oh, no, that one is Whis. Okay, so the Beerus Aesthetics Annihilation is Whis, but the SR Beerus and the blue-yellow Beerus are not Whis specific. So you can just run those in a Soul Striker deck, and again, you have a leader that's going to unconditionally untap, awaken at high life, and be able to just keep going. Now, granted, this Whis, again, can awaken at high life. If your opponent awakens early, this guy can awaken. But it's still just unfortunate that the deck doesn't do enough on its own to warrant it being played over Soul Striker. unfortunately, Soul Striker is simply that strong and that consistent. It doesn't have to jump through all these hoops to untap, it just swings and untaps. In terms of splashability, yeah, some of these cards can be used in any blue deck. The blue Beerus is a great addition to blue. If your deck ever gets blue centric, you have a blue Beerus counterplay, and let me see if that requires you to be a Whis leader, because I'm a little shaky on what is required and is not required. Let's see, playtime. Nope, if one of your blue Beerus cards is attacking your opponent's battle card. So you don't really have to worry about most of these cards being leader locked. Next we're gonna move on to green. We're gonna go over Beerus and Champa at the same time. Meta viability, I think they are both interesting. If the format is too punchy, I am a little scared of these, because if the format is too punchy, like Red Universe 7 Goku versus this, may be a really hard time, because while you have plenty of targets to attack with these Beerus and Champa battle cards, you start at 4 life and the deck can easily put that on the table on turn 2. So that could be a very, very bad matchup. However, if the format ever gets to a point where we're more late game mid-range, it slows down to the best decks of those, these decks could have some interesting kind of ways to go in, because they'll get bigger than what should normally block in the earlier couple turns, and then be able to start putting out cards. However, if it's a mid-range or late game, deck, they may not be putting out cards that can be swung on as easily. So, you really have to see how the format shapes up. In terms of meta viability, I am very, very afraid of these decks, because I feel like next format we're going to have a lot of mid-range, but a lot of punchy decks too, between Gogeta Zeno, unless it gets smacked. Trunks, Black Trunks can be very, very aggressive. U7 is very, very aggressive no matter what format, or no matter what leader you choose. And I feel like these decks are in danger to those things. I mean, look, Vegeta can put a double strike Unison on board on turn 2. What? This deck is in danger. So that's the thing. Now, when we're going over to whether the cards are splashable, these green cards are splashable. The Kaioken, Goku, and the Hit are some of the better green cards I've seen printed a bit, and they can be used very, very efficiently. Green has been kind of getting shadow buffed. You've got these cards. Last set, you had the King Vegeta Unison. Very, very, very good cards. And I just feel like green is just slowly building up in the background. We'll just need a valid leader, and you can probably see some sparks fly. Going over to yellow, what we're currently looking at is the Trunks leader. Now, the Trunks leader is pretty interesting in its own. Trunks leader is powerful, and the thing that I do want to say about it though is, as strong as this deck feels in testing right now, I do think people have to understand that the deck has good punchiness, but punchiness does not always denote a good deck. It needs to have some ways of not dying. Either needs to punch fast enough to not worry about dying, or it has to have good enough defense to not worry about dying. This deck doesn't offer good enough defense. Yellow as a color offers good enough defense, and that's going to be contingent on whether the ban list smacks it or not. So right now, Trunks has great early game filter, great setup. The setup is just very, very nice. An excellent boss card that you have to play around in specific ways, and then on top of that, it has all the things that make yellow right now. And when you combine those, you get a all-rounded package that's putting in some good work in testing. That being said, if yellow takes significant hits to where yellow can't defend itself the same way yellow's been defending itself, this deck automatically starts feeling worse, because now you have all that punchiness, but you have holes where you can get clapped back for infinite damage. So while I think this is probably the best, if not one of the best decks to come out of this set, I also feel like we need to pay attention to how the ban list / limit list works, because that could very much so change this level on the totem pole. In terms of splashableness, no. A lot of these cards specifically work for this deck. So while this deck may be the best one to come out of the set, it is actually very, very contained. If I'm not mistaken, you just need to be playing the Trunks and Vegeta cards, and those Trunks and Vegeta cards are best served in this leader. Next leader, we've got Zamasu. Zamasu is a Wish leader who doesn't use Desire cards. Very strange. So in terms of that, he's already kind of lost some backwards compatibility. But Outside of that, he's got one of the strongest filters I've seen on a leader in an archetype in a game, despite it requiring you to run a fair amount of God cards. But luckily, you know, that's not that hard to do. There's a lot of good God cards that play themselves in this color. In terms of meta viability, again, yellow is such a strong color. If you find a win con with this deck that's reliable, yellow will carry you the rest of the way. So again, it's almost in the same boat as Trunks. It's not as good as Trunks. I wouldn't put this in the top 3 decks to come out. But I definitely feel like this deck could see some tournament viability the way yellow is currently. But we should always keep in mind where yellow is going. In terms of splash, I mean, a lot of these cards are just good Zamasu cards. Now, there are a fair amount of them require you to have a Zamasu Wish or Goku Black Wish leader. So I'm going to put this kind of as a meh for terms of, you know, splash ability, because these cards are mostly going to remain in this deck. Next, we are at yellow and getting towards the end of the video, or the black. Did I say yellow? I meant to say black. I apologize. So we got Trunks. Trunks is another one of the ones where I deem is one of the best leaders coming out of this set. He is very, very generic, but it's good generic. It's not just bland generic. He is filtering cards well. He flips over with a very, very good activate condition. He doesn't have to go down on life, and on his back end, he's able to have removal and still filter just as hard. He is a strong leader, and he is not bound by archetype. So he gets to use most of the best black cards, and on top of that, he's able to use his own archetype, which is strong on its own. I think that this leader is going to see a splash in the next format because he's just a good black leader. He's able to make a lot of board presence, filter through the deck, and it's not always contingent. It's not even contingent upon what his board is. His board will only help him. He filters on his own. And that's always dangerous to the leader, because then you have to worry about how strong the cards are around him, in addition to how strong this leader is just doing its thing. So meta viability, I think this one is definitely gonna make a splash. In this UW format, I expect to see him being played quite a few times in Miami and Texas. Now, you've also got the fact that his archetype cards are pretty limited. They require you to have a black Trunks Xeno. However, his boss card, the Super Saiyan God Trunks, is very, very, very splashable. It's actually one of the better black cards to be released in the bit, because it's a straight combo extender. Costs 2, but it's 20k swinging twice, and it's going to allow you to do another black overwhelm. You don't even have to start expending cards from your hand anymore. You can just cycle it from your warp, and that's monstrous. In terms of theme, since I forgot to go over all this before, in terms of flavor, I will just backtrack a little bit for the ones I missed. Champa and Beerus are cool because they don't fight. That's why they tap each other to play their combatants. And then, you know, later in the fight, they'll get heated, so they start swinging. That's cute. Trunks, he's fighting alongside of his father, and he needs to be able to, you know, have his father to reach his higher heights with that father-son Gallic gun. Very flavorful. Zamasu is literally wishing, and then he turns into Goku Black. Super flavorful. And then you've got this Trunks. The flavor on this Trunks actually isn't really that much here. I mean, it's kind of cute that you have to have 5 more Saiyans in your warp, just like how Goku had to have 5 Saiyans under him to do the God transformation. He has to have 5 Saiyans in the warp to do the God transformation. So I guess that is, in a sense, flavor on its own. Next and last, we've got Debora. He swaps, but his swaps aren't that good. There's not really much to say about that. His swaps are not that good, and they're costing energy, bro. That's a 1-2 punch. He's got some cards, got Dark Overwhelm, like, but look at this dark. Like, there's a Demon God Debora, and it's like when this card is played, draw 1 card, then your opponent chooses 1 card in their hand and sends it to warp. This guy costs 3 for Overwhelm 4, Dark Overwhelm 4 for 3. What are we doing? Why are we paying 3 for that effect? Why is there a super combo that has swap with Spirit Boost 1? Like, why are all these swaps coming with Spirit Boost, man? Like, oh my gosh, like, there's EX Evolve, there's Spirit Boost. If your Unison comes in with 1 counter, can +1, needs to Spirit Boost, then dies, like, I can't get over how funky this is. We went from swapping for free and energy to swapping for Spirit Boost. Swapping if you have a Unison on board. So you have to find the unison, then you have to swap it. Like now, meta viability, no. I mean, again, if you want to prove me wrong, I welcome it. I'd love to be proved wrong, but it just seems like there's too many hoops. You have to have the correct combo pieces, the pieces to swap into, the unison in order. And tops of splash ability, nah. Nah. It's rough. It's looking rough. So, in terms of playability, this set has a whole lot going for it. There's a lot of cards that you can put into previous decks. There's a lot of cards you can use with the current decks. There's a lot of things you can just do in general, and I'm here for it. It's one of the most playable sets meta-wise, or like competitive-wise, that I think we've seen since like Vermilion, Bloodline, set 11, and this is technically what, set 16 now? So it's been a bit, but I'm happy that it seems like cards are being made with more purpose, and they're actually kind of like working on a higher realm of power compared to what we've seen so far. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think of it, what you guys think of my opinions, the archetypes. Think I missed something, think I need to reevaluate something, let me know in the comments. And if you like the content, think about hitting that subscribe button, join the UniX fam, and I will see you guys the next time I join Universe X. Thanks.